So what happens when you die? Is there an afterlife? This is the question that many people ask, and this is the question that keeps many people stuck in different religions because they are overly concerned about what happens in their afterlife. You see, most of us live a life of insignificance on the grand scheme of things. Most of us, within 100 years, no one is going to remember who you are, what did you do, what you did, what you accomplished. There are very few people in history that actually have been remembered. So many of us, our greatest contribution to the human race is the production of more humans. Now, yeah, you might be a good person and you do some good things, and that's beneficial to our today's world. And we should strive for that. The meaning of life is not the meaning that someone else gives it, it is the meaning that you give it. And truly, we have made the meaning of life selfish in our attempt and our conscious thought process to get to heaven, to some type of afterlife. So what is the afterlife if that is our main objective here? Because the reality is that most people are afraid to die, and they want to believe that they're going to continue to live for eternity and not have to go through a death cycle ever again. Many religions have come and gone and have taught different teachings based on what happens in the afterlife, and let's explore some of those for a minute. Now, we know in our modern day religions, for the most part, the major ones, your afterlife either consists of going straight to heaven or straight to hell. Your afterlife may be, if you're Jewish, is going straight to Abraham's bosom or going to heaven, or total annihilation, ceasing to exist, period. No consciousness whatsoever. If you are Buddhist or Hindu, then you are reincarnated over and over again until you satisfy your karmic debt, or you are able to reach the highest caste of Brahma. And then when you go through samsara after that, you enter into the universal consciousness. But in ancient times, many of the thoughts and teachings were different. And although I cannot cover all of them, I'll look at a few. One of the oldest civilizations in the world was the Sumerians. And according to the Sumerian afterlife, when a person died, it didn't matter if they were a good person or a bad person. They existed as a shadowy version of themselves, still wandering and walking on earth. Their duties, even at that time frame, living in the place called Ker, governed by Ershkigal, was that they still had to provide subsistence for the gods. Now, if a person's burial rites weren't done properly, then they may have been given a pass to go and haunt their family until their family buried them correctly and did right by them. And then they went into their shadowy life to please the gods and take care of the gods, which is very much normal to how they believe they live their life. Now, as far as the Kemetic stories, which is another one of the oldest civilizations that we know of, we haven't gotten that far with Göbekli Tepe and Taran Tepe. But as far as the Kemetic society, after you go into the Duat is the underworld, your journey into the underworld. And you would go and travel through all these different types of topographical areas, mountains and deserts and rivers and streams and whole islands of fire, possibly. And you would come to the 42 divine gods who sat on a court, and they judge your heart by the feather of Mayat, and you would plead your case. If you were found that your heart was heavier, then it was thrown on the ground and it was devoured by Amut, and you ceased to exist. If your heart was found lighter than the feather, or if Horus was able to advocate for you, then you would enter into the field of reeds. And in the field of reeds, which is where you would live, which is interesting because it was also called Elysian. And that's interesting for a little bit later. You would then work. You would work to provide a life for yourself and still serve the gods. And you can actually work to make your life better in the field of reeds, or Elysian, while you were there and there for all eternity. As far as the Greeks were concerned, the afterlife was very interesting. Everybody went to Hades. Everybody went to Hades. But there were differences in Hades, different levels. If you were a warrior and you died in battle, and this is why Elysian is important, you go to Elysium. Elysium was the level of heaven to where warriors went, almost like Valhalla with the Asgardians, with the Vikings. So warriors would go to Elysium. If you were a wicked person, then you would go to Tartarus. This is why Hades and Tartarus and Sheol are mentioned in your Bible, because everybody in the Judaism goes to Sheol. Everybody in the Greek went to Hades, and then if you were wicked, you went to Tartarus. And then there were other levels within this scope of Hades. And just to jump across the water, if you were Aztec and you died, it's very interesting. If you were a woman who died of childbirth, then you went to the paradise in the West and became one of the divine women. If you just died a regular old life, then you went to the paradise in the East, where you would live there for 4 years and then you would come back as a bird. If you died as I believe it's a warrior, then you went to Tolkien. And there's one other place where if you died of being struck by lightning, a disease, or drowning, you had a whole nother place that you went to there called Michkalan, something like that. Mictlan. You went there. So throughout history, man has created different ideas of what happens in your afterlife. And the main reason why man creates these is because man just doesn't know. We don't know, but we want the comfort of thinking and believing that if we lived a certain life, that we would go to a certain place and that place would be better than the place to which we are living in today. But in all reality, your mind is so powerful that it creates all these different Tartaruses and Tolkans and Elysiums and all these different things. And science has shown us that our consciousness in anesthesiology, there are different levels that we go through before we go to total death. And the anesthesiologist knows what level to take you in order to revive you. But when we go to total death, no one knows. And people talk about, oh, I saw a light, I saw a light, I saw a light. I went to heaven, I went to hell. Well, most of that is because your consciousness have been programmed by all these different stories and teachings that these are the things that you're supposed to see. If you grew up Christian, then you're probably going to see either a heaven or hell. If you have what you call a near-death experience, which is not death because you didn't die, then when all that DMT drops into your brain because of what's in your subconscious mind, you may go to hell. And hell is always based on what you see and know today. Like the one guy who was saying he went to hell and he saw rappers and people of today who was making music with demons, but they were making the same music that they were making at his time frame. He saw what his conscious mind was programmed to see, seeing the light and going into the light, what your mind is consciously programmed to see. If you grew up learning Ifa, then and you have a near-death experience, most likely you're going to see your ancestors because that's what your mind has been pre-programmed to see. So the true reality and most likelihood is that whatever your subconscious mind has determined is your true place of you, that you should go, is where you will go, is where your mind, your consciousness will then exist. But I like samsara in the Tibetan Book of the Dead because it gives you choices. The whole process demonstrates how you have a choice to either rejoin with the universal consciousness that is beyond this matter plane of existence, or you come back to this earth because you choose a light that is most familiar to it, that is attracted to you, or you stay trapped in samsara dealing with the demons that you conjure up yourself. And until you realize that you conjured up those demons, you stay stuck there. But there's always an opportunity for you to leave there. So you should gird up your conscious mind. These teachings also run parallel with the teachings in the Hermetics, the teachings of the Emerald Tablets, that the development of your conscious mind determines where you go and how you live after you leave this existence. So keep growing. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself. because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.